So there is this funny story that Herodotus tells us, and it's about this guy who was almost being allowed to marry a princess, but then he did something very stupid, and that offer was withdrawn. So this is what happened. I've mentioned before about the family of the Almaonidae. This is the family that I told you was very wealthy, and they led the removal of Hippias from power in Sparta, not in Sparta, in Athens. Sorry. So this is the family that built a temple and used that temple to run this propaganda of telling Athenians that the gods were asking them to get rid of the tyrant Hippias. Yeah, so that's that family. So Herodotus tells us about their background. Seems like this was a well-established family. They were very wealthy. They were very connected. They've been around for a very long time. They had even produced kings for not only Athens, but also other Greek city-states. So it was a big family. Now, Herodotus tells us this story as a tangent. I've told you many times that Herodotus has this habit of telling us stories as tangents to telling us this story, then he abandons it for a moment, he goes tells us something else. So this is one of those. So it tells us about one of the members of this family. His name was Clisthenes. Remember, there is Clisthenes who became the ruler of Athens after the removal of Hippias. That's not the Clisthenes we are talking about here. It is Clisthenes who was alive maybe several decades or centuries before these Clisthenes, but they were of the same family. Now, these Clisthenes we are talking about today ruled over a city-state known as Sicyon. He was the king of Sicyon. Um, and he was also an Olympiad. He was a champion in the Olympics. He had won, I think, he used to participate in races, I think, of horses or something like that. So he was a king. He was also an Olympiad. So one time he goes to the Olympics, and after winning, he makes an announcement to the people who are present, because at the Olympic people used to come from all over the place and they come to the Olympics. So it was like the best place to make an announcement that you wanted to reach much of Greece. So he makes an announcement and he tells the people present that he has a daughter by the name Agarista. And he says Agarista is now of age and he plans to give her away in marriage. And he was now trying to find a suitable person to marry this lady. And he tells the people present that he's inviting anybody who is interested, sons of noble families or people of high society from all over Greece, young men who are ready to get married, to come to him in Sicyon, and he was going to stay with them for a whole year, and then he would decide who he was going to marry his daughter. Now, he gave a period of 6 months for people to show interest. At the end of the 6 months, there were 11 guys who were interested, and he invites them to his home in Sicyon, and he decides he was going to stay with them for a whole year. And during this time, he was going to look at these people, besides, of course, their family background, which you could easily know, because the guys who came are people who came from families that were notable, families that were known. So he knew almost all of them, not personally, but he knew them through their families. So these guys come, 11 of them, I think. And he decides to live with them at his house, and he wanted to now look at their personalities. He wanted to look at the reader says manly bearing. He wanted to look at their temper, their accomplishment, and their disposition of any other form. So uh, these guys start living with him, and he sometimes he will pick one of them, they will go out and together, and they will have a conversation, and he will try to see how this person is thinking. Sometimes he will have them as a group, and he will take them out for sport, for things like that. So so then it was almost a year gone, and he had made up his mind. And the guy he had chosen to marry his daughter was a guy known as Hippoclides, son of Tisander. So he liked everything about this guy. He liked his temper. He liked his the way he carried himself. He liked his family especially. They were very. It was a good family according to his standards. So he liked him, and he had finally made his decision that he was going to let this guy marry Agarista. Now, before he could announce, or not before, but to announce that decision, he decided to organize a huge party, and he sacrificed like 50 heads of cattle to gods, and then there was a lot of food prepared and drinks, and he invites other people from the city and his other family members from all over the place, and of course other people. They come to this event, and and people eat and drink and talk, and it's fun. And then the guy who we had picked, Hippoclides, of course he doesn't know that Clisthenes has picked him to be the guy he's going to give his daughter to. So the very final moment, like it's almost time for him to declare that, Hippocrates is the guy. Hippoclides does something. Hippoclides, because it's a merrymaking event, he calls out to the flute player to play some music, and Hippoclides starts to dance. Initially slow, he's dancing, and then at some point he starts. Herodotus says he starts to fancy that he was dancing excellently well, like he was maybe trying to impress the people who were in the party, that he was a very good dancer. So meanwhile, Clisthenes is observing him, and slowly starts to doubt his decision, because he doesn't like that this guy is dancing the way he's dancing. I think Clisthenes had an issue with with dancing. And then Hippocrates then tells the one of the attendants, already Clisthenes is having a problem with this guy dancing. And then this guy makes it even worse. Hippocrates makes it even worse. He calls one of the attendants and tells him to bring a table. And this guy puts at the table somewhere. And then he tells the flute player to play another tune, I guess, and he starts to dance, and now he's on top of the table, he's dancing, dancing, and then at some point let me read what Herodotus writes. He says, Clisthenes now loathed Hippocrates for a son-in-law by reason of his dancing and his shamelessness. Still, as he wished to avoid an outbreak, had restrained himself during the first and likewise during the second dance. When, however, he saw him tossing his legs in the air, he could no longer contain himself. Like now on the table, this guy now he dances. He starts to dance with his head. He stood. He says he stood on his head upon the table, and now he's tossing his legs in the air. You can imagine. And Clisthenes is disturbed by that. Like he could not even now hold himself. He could not pretend like all was well. And he shouted, "Son of Tisander!" he tells him, "Son of Tisander, you've danced your wife away." Like "No, I'm not going to give you my daughter. Like, this is embarrassing." And Hippocrates, I don't know what was happening to him. He responds, he tells him, what does Hippocrates care? Like, Hippocrates seems to have been having a really good time. Most likely, drank a bit. He was under the influence, and he didn't really care. And so he lost his opportunity like that. And and at the end of the party, Clisthenes announces that, okay, I'm going to give each of these guys who came a talent of silver, just to be like, you people took your time, you came here for a whole year. I don't want you to go home empty handed. I'm giving each one of you a talent of silver. But I've decided that the person who's going to be the husband to my daughter is one Megacles, the son of Alcmaeon. So this story I think, is something that happens often. You invest a lot of energy, effort, time, money, and everything into something, and then when you are just about to get the returns, you make a small, stupid mistake and you lose everything.